Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something truly transformative. We're looking at these rapidly advancing technologies, the ones aimed at, you know, significantly extending human lifespan and enhancing our capabilities.
It's a huge area right now.
Absolutely. And we've really sifted through a lot of material research findings, tech analyses, philosophical takes. Quite a mix.
Yeah, lots to unpack there.
And the goal for this deep dive is, well, to cut through that complexity. We want to pull out the key insights, the core developments, and importantly, the ethical questions they bring up.
It's about getting a clearer picture of what's happening now and, what we really need to be thinking about for the future.
Exactly. So where should we start? What are the big technologies really making waves right now?
Well, I think we have to start with genetic engineering. It's seen some incredible breakthroughs lately. Think of it like having the ability to precisely edit the blueprint of life itself.
Right, like a molecular scalpel, kind of.
Yeah.
And CRISPR-Cas9 is the name that just keeps popping up, isn't it?
It is, yeah. CRISPR is a real game changer. I mean, its current applications are already making a difference. You've got that first approved therapy for sickle cell anemia just last year.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. Uses CRISPR.
Exactly. Uses CRISPR to correct the faulty gene. It's also being used to modify other disease mutations, even in agriculture.
Yeah.
So basically, CRISPR lets us rewrite genetic code very precisely, opens doors for treating disease, maybe even aging. But, yeah, there are risks, big ones.
And the lifespan extension part, that's where it gets, well, really fascinating for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I mean, the potential to target genes linked to aging, fix mutations causing age-related diseases, maybe even enhance longevity genes, it's immense.
But there are limitations.
Definitely. There's the risk of off-target edits, accidentally changing other bits of the genome and getting the edits delivered just right to the right cells. That's still a challenge.
Right.
And crucially, we just don't know the long-term effects. Plus, the whole ethics of germline editing, changing DNA that gets passed on, that's a massive conversation.
Yeah, changing future generations, that's heavy stuff. Okay, another area that sounds like pure sci-fi becoming real is this genetic reprogramming idea.
It really is a remarkable concept. Imagine being able to hit a reset button on a cell's age, taking it back to a younger, more versatile state. It involves using what are called Yamanaka factors.
Yamanaka factors. So these are the key ingredients sort of for turning back the clock cell by cell.
That's the idea. And the research is showing, well, some real promise. Rejuvenate Bio, for instance, they reported about a 7% lifespan increase in mice using gene therapy to deliver these factors.
Wow, 7% in mice.
And you've got places like Altos Labs investing billions into exploring this. The focus now is mostly on partial reprogramming.
Why partial?
Because fully resetting a cell carries a pretty significant risk of it becoming cancerous. So the big potential is cellular rejuvenation, but the major hurdle is managing that cancer risk.
Cancer is definitely, a huge concern. Are there other challenges with reprogramming?
Well, like gene editing, delivery is key. Getting those factors safely to the specific cells you want to target, difficult. And then figuring out the best protocols for this partial reprogramming. How much reset, how often, it's all still very much experimental.
Okay, so we're looking at directly tinkering with our biology. What about repairing or replacing parts as we age? That brings us to regenerative medicine, right?
Exactly. And stem cell therapies are a big part of that. I mean, currently they're used in things like bone marrow transplants, skin grafts. Pretty established stuff.
Yeah.
And there are clinical trials ongoing for loads of degenerative conditions.
So the potential is there to fix damaged tissues.
That's the hope. Replacing aging tissues, regenerating organs damaged by age, even maybe rejuvenating our immune systems, which tend to weaken over time.
But it's not simple.
No, definitely not. You've got the issue of immune rejection. There are still ethical debates around embryonic stem cells, though other types are used too. There's a potential risk of tumors forming. And just scaling up production to make these therapies widely available. That's a huge logistical challenge.
Right. It has to be practical, not just possible in a lab. What about building actual replacement parts? Tissue engineering, artificial organs, that feels very futuristic.
It feels it, but it's actually closer than you might think. We have technologies like 3D bioprinting.
Using cells like ink?
Sort of, yeah. Creating tissues layer by layer. We also have lab-grown organoids, these tiny 3D tissue cultures that mimic organ function, and decellularized scaffolds,
Yeah.
basically taking the framework of a donor organ and repopulating it with the patient's own cells.
To avoid rejection.
Exactly. So the idea is potentially replacing failing organs without needing donors. The complexity, though, is huge, replicating all those intricate biological structures like blood vessels.
That's amazing. So a lab-grown heart matched perfectly to me isn't just fantasy.
That's the long-term vision, yeah. And maybe even going beyond simple replacement. Think about custom-designed organs, maybe with enhanced features or built-in sensors for health monitoring.
Wow.
But again, challenges. Creating those complex blood vessel networks is incredibly hard. Scaling up from small samples to full organs, making sure they integrate properly with the body, getting through regulatory approval. It's a long road.
So alongside re-engineering biology, there's the pharmaceutical route, the idea of, uh, a pill to slow aging.
That's a very active area, yes. Senolytics are one interesting class of drugs. You can think of them as clearing out the cellular rust that builds up over time.
Cellular rust, I like that.
They target and eliminate senescent cells. These are damaged cells that hang around as we age and release inflammatory stuff that causes problems.
So getting rid of the bad apples.
Precisely. It's like spring cleaning for your cells. Early research looking at drug combinations like dasatinib and quercetin and drugs from companies like Unity Biotechnology, Mayo Clinic trials, they're showing potential benefits. Reduced inflammation, better tissue function.
Interesting. And then there are mTOR inhibitors like rapamycin. I've definitely heard that name linked to longevity.
Yeah, rapamycin has shown lifespan extension in various animal models quite consistently, actually. It's being tested in humans for age-related conditions. It's already used medically as an immunosuppressant.
Ah, but that sounds like a potential downside. Immunosuppression.
It is. That's one of the challenges, managing side effects, figuring out the right dose for long-term use, and just understanding the long-term safety for aging specifically.
Right. And what about NAD plus boosters? NMN, NR. You see those supplements everywhere now.
You really do. NAD plus is vital for cellular energy and lots of metabolic processes. Levels tend to drop as we age, so the idea is boosting them back up.
Makes sense intuitively.
It does. And animal studies have shown some promising results, but the human clinical trial data is pretty mixed so far. Despite that, yeah, they're commercially very popular. Lots of marketing.
Feels like we're just scratching the surface of the biology stuff. But enhancement isn't only physical, is it? There's boosting our minds, too, with brain-computer interfaces.
Absolutely. BCIs. Technologies creating a direct link between the brain and, well, computers or other devices. You have the non-invasive ones.
Like EEG headsets.
Exactly. EEG, TMS using magnetic fields. They're already used for basic device control, treating depression, monitoring cognition.
But they're limited in what they can pick up, right?
Yeah, because they're reading signals from outside the skull. The resolution isn't great. It's mostly surface activity, and there's signal noise. Invasive implants, though. That's different.
These like Neuralink.
Neuralink, yes, and also establish things like deep brain stimulation, brain gate. These offer potential for much more direct, high-bandwidth brain communication. The game changer could be direct neural control, maybe even cognitive enhancement. But, surgery is involved.
Brain surgery. Yeah, that's a big step.
It is. Huge risks. And ensuring the implants are safe and work long-term inside the body, biocompatibility, plus just navigating the ethics and regulations is incredibly complex.
What sort of applications are we talking about, potentially?
Oh, it's vast. Helping paralyzed people control limbs, treating neurological disorders much more precisely, maybe even enhancing memory or attention someday. But again, those hurdles, surgical risk, long-term safety, ethics, they're significant.
And with all this technology, all these biological interventions, the amount of data must be astronomical, which is where AI comes in, I assume.
Absolutely. AI is becoming indispensable, especially for longevity drug discovery. Algorithms can crunch through massive data sets to find potential drug candidates, predict how they'll work, even repurpose existing drugs.
Faster than humans ever could.
Exactly. And companies like In Silico Medicine, Benevolent AI, they're pioneers here. AI is basically supercharging the research, identifying patterns humans might miss, speeding everything up.
And making treatments more specific to individuals.
That's the other key area, personalized medicine. You combine things like whole genome sequencing, mapping your entire DNA with other omics data, like proteins and metabolites, feed it all into AI.
And you get boy.
You get insights for highly personalized interventions, tailored plans to slow your specific aging process, early warnings for diseases you're predisposed to, optimizing your health parameters. It's moving beyond one size fits all.
It really paints an incredible picture of what's becoming possible. But thinking bigger picture now,
Yeah.
these advances could change society profoundly, couldn't they?
They absolutely could. I mean, the promise is immense, but yeah, the societal considerations are just as significant. We really need to think about how these advancements might reshape, well, everything.
Let's shift gears then and maybe dive into some of those really fundamental questions.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about radically changing what it means to be human, these technologies hit right at our identity, don't they?
They really do. Take identity and continuity of self. There's that old thought experiment, the ship of Theseus.
Right. Replace every plank on a ship one by one.
Yeah.
Is it still the same ship?
Exactly. Apply that to us. If you gradually replace every biological bit of your body with, say, an enhanced artificial one, at what point, if ever, are you not you anymore?
So real head scratcher. Is identity tied to our physical stuff, our biology? Or is it more about our memories, our consciousness, or story?
That's the core question, isn't it? Is psychological continuity, our memories, personality, that feeling of being me enough? Or do we need some biological continuity too? And think about radical life extension. Living for centuries, would you even feel like the same person after 300 years?
Could your identity kind of fragment over that timescale?
Possibly. And then you get into mind uploading, transferring consciousness to a computer. That just blows everything wide open.
Yeah, is that uploaded version really me? Or just a copy?
Right. And what if you make multiple copies? Which one's the real you? Does the subjective feeling of being conscious even transfer? We just don't know.
These questions really force us to confront what we think makes us. And as we potentially move beyond our current biology, what happens to our idea of human nature, our values?
That's critical. Is there some essential humanness we might lose through radical enhancement? Is our nature defined by biology or by our capabilities like reason or empathy? The line between natural and artificial is getting seriously blurry.
And is natural automatically better?
That's the naturalistic fallacy, right? Maybe technology is just part of human expression, our drive to innovate. But people worry about authenticity too.
And if we change ourselves so fundamentally, could our values just shift completely in ways we can't even imagine now?
It's a huge question. If, say, death and major suffering become optional, how does that change what we value? Could cognitive enhancements lead to totally different ways of thinking, different moral codes even? Might super-enhanced beings develop values totally alien to us?
It feels like we could be heading towards a transformation that just redefines everything. What about our freedom, our autonomy in all this?
Well, there's the idea of morphological freedom, the right to decide about our own bodies, including enhancements.
That was reasonable.
But where do you draw the line? Are there limits? And what about kids who can't consent? Who decides for them?
That's tricky. And even if enhancements aren't forced,
Yep.
the social pressure could be intense, couldn't it?
Exactly. If enhancements give you a big advantage in jobs or education, you might feel you have to get them just to keep up. Could we end up where being unenhanced is a major disadvantage, socially unacceptable even? It's a tough balance between freedom and societal pressure.
And what about meaning? The purpose we find in life. How does potentially living forever affect that?
It's profound. Does knowing life is finite give it urgency? Meaning, would living for ages eventually lead to, well, cosmic boredom?
Running out of things to do?
Or exhausting all meaningful goals? And what about suffering? We often see it as a teacher, something that drives growth. If we eliminate most of it, what do we lose? Could enhanced beings find totally new sources of meaning we can't grasp now?
It really feels like uncharted territory. These technologies raise issues we've just never had to grapple with on this scale before. Incredibly complex.
That's absolutely right. These aren't just science projects. They're fundamentally reshaping what it means to be human, the kind of future we're building. These questions about identity, values, freedom, purpose, they aren't just philosophical musings. They're practical considerations for the choices we have to make.
This has been, well, a really eye-opening deep dive. We've covered the cutting-edge tech aiming to extend life and enhance us, and touched on some incredibly deep questions about who we are and where we're going. It's clear, isn't it, that sci-fi is fast becoming reality. You see it with things like that CRISPR therapy approval, the huge money going into genetic reprogramming.
Exactly. This isn't a hypothetical anymore. It's happening, which makes these discussions about ethics, about society, about meaning incredibly urgent. We need to be having them now.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe the thought to leave you with is this. As we gain this incredible power to reshape ourselves, biologically and mentally, are we really ready for the implications? Are we asking the right questions now to make sure we use these technologies in ways that reflect our best values and build a future that actually benefits everyone, not just a few?
Yeah.
It's a conversation we all need to be part of. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.